Hey guys, another One Take review. Today I wanted to talk about the new Cult of Luna album, The Long Road North. This is the latest album from the Swedish sludge metal band, and they have a pretty consistent discography, probably one of the most consistent discographies in the history of Swedish metal, which is saying something because Sweden's had some pretty intense discographies as far as metal go, but this is just another addition to an already great pre-established discography. Cult of Luna is primarily led by guitarist slash vocalist Johannes Persson, and he does some great vocal work here. He has been since the band debuted in 2001, and again, his vocal work here is just absolutely devastating as it's always been. He sounds just utterly fantastic. But he's also joined by another vocalist on this album, which is pretty different considering Cult of Luna's history, even though they have done collaborations in the past. The main reason why I say this is slightly different is because that other vocalist is actually Miriam Wallington, and if that name sounds slightly familiar to you, if you're into experimentalism, she was a part of bands like Fire Orchestra and a bunch of other lesser known, lesser cared about, unfortunately, groups that kind of vary in different degrees of experimentalism, and she does join the fray here and actually provide lead vocals in the first track, well, not the first track on the album, but the first track titled Beyond here. And overall, she's a pretty good vocalist. I think her voice is lovely. I think that her own work in other bands that are more focused around her or that she's just a member of completely full time, she's done better. But no, her work is very pleasant here. Unfortunately, her work is kind of restricted to nothing but a transitional piece, and honestly, I kind of would have liked to have seen her kind of show up more throughout the album. I understand why she didn't show up in the more like intense, musically intense parts, but I do think that it would have been interesting to see her at least appear once or twice as songs begin or close. That unfortunately, it's just a one-time collaboration as far as I'm aware. Honestly, I haven't listened to the past couple of Cult of Luna albums, so unless she showed up on there or she showed up before and I'm forgetting. But my point is, she sounds good here, and I really do wish that she was featured more prominently. That being said, the rest of the instrumentals here, beyond the vocals, are very strong as well. The rest of Cult of Luna are composed of guitarist Magnus Lindberg, drummer Thomas Hedlund, other guitarist and vocalist Fredrik Kilberg, keyboardist Christian Carlson, and bassist Andreas Johansson. And yes, I did read that off the list because man, I tried to film this several times trying to remember those names without looking at the list, but I just couldn't do it. So yeah, that's the rest of the band though. Is my point. They're all great performers though. Really, they are a very heavy outfit. They kind of complement each other very well. They each individually stand out, which is probably and thanks to the production, which I'll talk about later. They do create an atmosphere as well as performers, which I will talk about later again because that's a really noteworthy part of the album. But they're very strong. They're not, I wouldn't say they're exactly the most technical bunch of individuals or anything, but when they are given a concept, they perform it and execute it flawlessly. So, yeah, the instrumentals here are wonderful. I will say the songwriting on this record is kind of interesting because it sort of mixes the sort of vicious, dark lyrics of something like death metal mixed with those epic lyrical lengths of something that we'd see in a typical progressive metal record. But this is obviously neither of those things. It's like a atmospheric sludge metal, basically. But it's an interesting combination, and I maybe it's just because I'm slightly unfamiliar with the genre itself, the subgenre, I should say. I'm familiar with sludge metal, just not this very atmospheric side of it. But the lyricism style is great. I think it's wonderful. I think that the lyricism perfectly complements the epic lengths of the songs, and overall, I think the songwriting is very interesting, and tracks like Blood Upon Stone are really highlights of the album, besides the fact that they're just great, but also because of the fact that they do have some really strong words to back them up. To put it in short, the Long Road North is just narratively stunning, and it really has no right to be overall. These excellent performances, mixed with strong songwriting as well as production from the previously mentioned guitarist Magnus Lindberg, come together to create what's sort of a very just enveloping atmosphere, and I do think it's probably the defining aspect of the album. There's just something so enormous about the Long Road North. It's just sort of explosive, but it's filled with such a sense of creeping dread that it's kind of impossible to define it as just a metal album. It almost feels wrong. The way this atmosphere builds kind of reminds you of Neurosis just as much as it does Edgar Allan Poe story, and I really love this album for that. I think it's a really unique factor about it. And really, if I had to describe this album in the most childish comparison I could possibly do, this album is like a Swedish kaiju. You know what? No. If Cult of Luna's discography is just nothing but, for the most part, just massive, epic, fantastic albums, they're the kaiju of Sweden, and this is the equivalent of Godzilla. This is, I know this is the dumbest comparison I could possibly make right now, and this is a very epic, serious album that I do recommend, but that really is what this is like. Overall, The Long Road North is just a really enormous record. It's probably one of Cult of Luna's best in some time, and honestly, it just kind of looms over you, even in its most intense and chaotic moments musically. And I think that this is really just a fantastic addition to a really excellent discography, and I wasn't really expecting any less from this album, or I should say I wasn't really expecting any more, and I was kind of expecting maybe a little bit less. You know, I mean, they've been so consistent over the years that I kind of start to expect that they do something, bad. That goes for any band that's really very consistent over time, but Cult of Luna still have it after all these years, and I probably doubt that they're gonna lose it anytime soon because this record sounds like a band that's in its prime when they've been around for over 20 years now. So yeah, The Long Road North, fantastic album. And with that being said, I'm gonna have to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. Really, just a great record overall that I highly recommend. It's just performed excellently. The vocals are great. Production is especially a noteworthy aspect, and atmosphere. When people talk about atmospheric metal and how moving it can be, this is what people are talking about. At least, in my opinion, this is what people should be talking about if that's not what they're talking about. But I'm pretty sure this is what people are talking about when they say that. So yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna give this album 4.5 stars out of 5. Just amazing record. And anyways, that is the end of this review. So I will see you guys in the next one.